And we're back. That means it's time to dig into our main topic, which is our overview of the new Astra Militarum codex. Now, if you're an old player, I know we kind of got into this at the very beginning of the episode, you may know this army as the Imperial Guard. It was the Imperial Guard for years and years, and then around, I believe it was 6th edition, the Imperial Guard became the Astra Militarum because that's trademarkable. There was much gnashing of teeth. There were a lot of people that were upset by this change, but we are several editions in now, and it is the Astra Militarum. Although, as Dennis, I think you pointed out, Games Workshop still uses Imperial Guard sometimes interchangeably with Astra Militarum.
And players still do. I mean,
for sure. Yeah.
It's the Guard.
Right. And if you are new to 40K, if you're first, welcome aboard. Goodbye to your wallet. And just like, especially if you pick this army, because this is not a cheap army, because this is a horde army. And that fits in with the fluff, because so you've got the Imperium of Man, and obviously humanity has a lot of forces available, but there's only so many Space Marines. Space Marines are kind of a special elite case. There's even fewer Grey Knights and fewer still Adeptus Custodes. There's the Adeptus Mechanicus, but they're kind of a weird special case. They definitely don't represent the breadth and width and depth of the population of the Imperium. Same can be said for the Sisters of the Adeptus Sororitas. But what about everyone else? Like, you can't you can't defend the Empire with just those specialized forces that I've listed. And that's where the Astra Militarum comes in. That is the millions upon millions upon millions of soldiers who are enlisted or drafted or tithed from various worlds to join in the defense of the Imperium. This is the joke is take a random person, hand them a flashlight and a t-shirt, and tell them to go fight that thing with 3 heads and 8 horns over there.
I like the Eldar version better. Give them a melta-gun and do the same thing.
Right.
Hey, do you know how melta-guns in this economy?
Yeah, I know. That's why they give them flashlights in the Imperium.
Yeah. Yes. They are, you give them las guns and some flak armor, some basic training, and you send them out in waves and waves. And the Imperium will spend millions of lives in multi-year campaigns to take like one city on one planet.
Yeah.
Check out the Siege of Rax sometime. It's depressing.
Yeah.
Siege of Rax, which is also one of the things that gave us the Death Korps of Krieg, which is so you'll notice as you get into this army that there's several different, it's not like Space Marines where it's like everybody's in the, similar marks of power armor. In the Imperial Guard, there's some standardized equipment like the las gun, and a lot of the vehicles will be specialized. But when it gets to the uniforms, there's a lot more variation. You've got Cadians, which is kind of the bog standard Imperial Guardsmen. With their like flak armor and like the green carapace armor and the helmets. But then you've got stuff like the Death Korps of Krieg, which look for all the world like World War I German soldiers, complete with like gas masks. And the Death Korps are from a world that basically ruined itself with warfare, and I believe that war went nuclear at some point, and it was due to some lack of faith in the Empire. And so the Kriegers have decided to redeem themselves by proving themselves so loyal that they will fight unto death. And they are used to working in hellscapes. So they are grim and determined, and
yeah,
the epitome of grim dark.
They seem grim fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there's the Cadians, which are named after the planet Cadia, which no longer exists because Abaddon blew it up by dropping a Blackstone fortress on it.
Whoa, spoilers.
For a thing that happened like several years ago. But Cadians were spread, like Cadians were so ubiquitous. Cadia was a fortress world at the very entrance to the Eye of Terror, and held back the forces of chaos for 10 millennia, and they were known for making, like, there's the phrase born soldiers, which comes from, like, it has been used in some of the army rules, and Cadians were like became the model for what Imperial soldiery would look like, and Cadian detachments and regiments were often sent out to other war zones just because they were known for being just very good, competent soldiers from a very young age. Because child soldiers, it's a 40K thing. But Cadia, despite the fact that Cadia has been destroyed, the Cadians survive, and they continue their tradition wherever they may live and wherever they may serve of that tradition of highly trained soldiery. We've talked about the Krieg. There's Catachan jungle fighters. The planet of Catachan is a death world. Yeah, the jungles there will try to kill you. It's basically Australia, but slightly worse. And only slightly. And the soldiers there are heavily modeled after like Vietnam jungle fighters and the cast of Predator. And so they are known for being, like rough and tumble killers in close combat and stealth and jungle warfare.
With really long arms for some reason.
Well, that's because they are very old models. They are now the oldest plastic models in the Imperial Guard range.
They desperately need a remake.
Yes. And then we have several examples of not appearing in plastic. The Valhallan Ice Warriors, which if you've read any of the Caiaphas Cain books, those are the soldiers that he generally serves with. The Mordian Iron Guard, who live on a planet that it's always night, and they're known for being very drilled, following orders to the letter. There's the Talarn Desert Raiders, which have fought the Tau in the Taros campaign.
Yeah, the Taros campaign.
Yeah. The Armageddon Steel Legion, which are like, what if you combine Death Korps of Krieg with like U.S. Army Rangers? And then, of course, there's all the various tanks and horses. Yes, I said horses, and artillery, and the things that you would expect kind of a modern combined forces army to have. And I say modern as in like 21st century combined forces army. So like APCs and battle tanks and artillery platforms and rocket launchers and gun emplacements. This is all represented in the Imperial Guard, and along with some things that feel straight out of World War I, like cavalry and gas masks.
Get on this horse and hit it with a stick with a grenade on the end.
Yeah, I mean, that's... Was it the average? There was a book called 15 Hours because that was the average lifespan of a guardsman once they hit the front line.
It's that high? Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Now, granted, that is the average. There's plenty that do survive, but there's lots that don't. So this is the grimmest darkness. Also, there are some specialized forces. There's the Tempestus Scions, which are elite troopers that are trained at the Schola Progenium, which is the same school that teaches commissars. Also, I believe the Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum, is the only force to make use of abhumans.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the other forces not so great with the mutant, but certain stable mutations such as Ogrins and Ratlings are present in the Imperial Guard. Ogrins not terribly smart, but very strong, very loyal. They make good bodyguards. Ratlings are basically hobbits. They make exceptional snipers and are good at sneaking around. Those are present in the Guard as well. And you also have the biggest of tanks, things like the Bane Blade and the various Bane Sword, Hammer, Blade, Bane combinations. We'll get into all of those later. But you can, and this is an army that does support running a mostly motorized force, or you can go, the human wave attack and just flood the field with infantry, or do a combination thereof. There's lots of ways to play the Imperial Guard. It is probably the most human of the various armies of the Imperium. It's also the one I think that has some of the best fiction written about it, because it is so human. It is very easy to get into without feeling like, oh wow, this is so like weird and beyond normal experience. Like the Gaunt's Ghost books, which also you can play Gaunt's Ghost. They are a unit you can play in the game here. But the Gaunt's Ghost books are very good. I mentioned the Caiaphas Cain books. There's several books about Cadians, like Cadia Stands, The Fall of Cadia, etc. There's just a wide variety of Imperial Guard fiction as well. So if this is a faction you're at all interested in.
Yeah, there's a reason why, like, the speculation is when they do the 40K TV series that, like, they should probably do something guard focused to start with, because it's a better window into the universe, I think, than starting with Space Marines.
Mm-hmm. Like, you can have Space Marines show up, and it's one of the things I do like about both Space Marine games, Space Marine 1 and 2, is it does have that interaction between the Guard and Space Marines, and it gives you a chance to see, like, oh yeah, Space Marines are truly superhuman, but also that the Guard in their human waves attacks and the use of their war gear can also be an effective fighting force, but sometimes they are outnumbered, outgunned, outforced by the things that they are dealing with, and need the help of more elite forces than they can provide.
Yeah.
So let's get into the rules for the Astra Militarum. The army rule for the Astra Militarum, and this has actually been an army rule that has been pretty much it's been this system or a slight variation of it for years now. Like, this has been the Imperial Guard's thing, has been the order system.
It's so popular the orcs copied it.
Yes. Yeah. But in this edition, in this codex, the rule is called the Voice of Command rule. If your army faction is Astra Militarum, officer models, which have the officer keyword, can issue orders. An officer's data sheet will tell you how many orders it can issue in a battle round, and who can receive them. Each time they issue an order, they select a unit within 6 inches that is eligible to receive the order, and they get whatever bonus the order provides. One caveat is you cannot issue an order to a battle-shocked unit, and if a unit becomes battle-shocked, they cease following any orders they were given, which obviously makes sense. Once a unit is battle-shocked, they kind of lose that cohesion they need to carry out these orders. This is pretty much unchanged from the index, with one slight addition, but this was actually changed in the balanced data slate at some point, and that you can give an order when you either during your command phase or when an officer disembarks from a transport. And there's even rules that will allow you to give orders from within transport. So your officers don't necessarily even have to be on the table exactly to give an order. Like, the one place they can't give an order from is if they're in deep strike. The orders include move, plus 3 inches to movement, fix bayonets, plus 1 weapon skill on all your melee attacks, take aim, plus 1 ballistic skill on all your ranged weapons, first ranked fire, second ranked fire, plus 1 attack for rapid fire weapons, which is primarily going to be your las guns, hotshot las guns, etc. Take cover, plus 1 save, can't get better than a 3-up, and duty and honor, plus 1 leadership, plus 1 OC. So if you need to take and hold an objective, that's your choice there. Again, pretty much unchanged from the index. This is a system that works. The main changes I can think of from earlier editions is back in the day, you actually had to do a leadership test to like take an order. They've gotten rid of that. Orders are just a thing that you can do and just happen. This is a good army rule, and it's very evocative for the Guard. It fits them flavor-wise.
Yeah, for sure.
And the number of orders you give is dependent on, again, which characters you take. And one thing I will notice is that as we go through the datasheet changes, a lot of the characters got their number of orders they can give bumped up, so they can give more orders to more units, which is good, because that is the Army special rule, and it's good to. It is a good rule to be able to spread around, and thus giving more chances to do that is always better. Getting into the detachments, the index detachment was called Combined Arms. It was or is called Combined Arms. It was the combined regiment in the index. They are effectively the same. There's a few minor, like a few changes to stratagems and like one enhancement. Otherwise, it is functionally identical. This is the all around. Any guard army will work nicely with this. Their detachment rule is Born Soldiers. And it is like this in the current index download and in the balanced data slate. Regiment units, if they attack a non-monster, non-vehicle, and when I say regiment is a keyword that is applied generally to infantry, artillery, non-vehicle artillery, and mounted units, tend to be regiment units. Anytime they make a ranged attack that targets a visible non-monster or vehicle, the attack has lethal hits, and they say visible so it doesn't spill over into indirect fire. Anytime a model in a squadron unit, which are your vehicles, squadron was a keyword the vehicles will have, except for super heavies generally. Each time a model in a squadron unit from your army makes a ranged attack that targets a visible monster or vehicle, the attack has lethal hits. So basically, when infantry fights infantry, lethal hits. When vehicles fight vehicles or monsters, lethal hits. And considering the number of shots that you can sometimes get from some of these units, especially with rules like first rank fire, second rank fire, you can actually get a fair number of lethal hits, which does help kind of overcome the fact that your guns are generally strength 3. Like, this is not a strong army, but this is a quantity has a quality all its own army. Your enhancements haven't changed terribly since the index. You've got the Death Mask of Elanius, which makes you lose 1 OC instead of being set to 0 when you're battle shocked, which good for this army because you do not have the best leadership in this army. Drill Commander lets you crit on 5s instead of 6s if you remain stationary, which plays nicely with that lethal hits ability. Grand Strategist, officer model can issue an additional order. And Reactive Command, this is the last new one because they lost Kurov's Aquila. Kurov's Aquila used to increase, like if an enemy unit used a strat once per game, you could make that strat cost 1 more for the rest of the game. That is now gone and has been replaced with Reactive Command. If someone sets up, that means they've deployed from Deep Strike or from reserves, an enemy unit set up within 9 inches of you, the bearer can issue an order, which doesn't count towards the number of orders they can normally issue. That is a very niche purpose.
Yeah.
Like that is not going to come into play all that often. I don't see, you're limited to 3 enhancements in an army anyway. I think that one can safely be, unless you're playing in an environment where people are deep striking or coming in from reserves all the time, I think you can safely skip that one. The other 3 are much better.
Demons are Grey Knights, maybe. But
yeah, there are a couple, but again, it's
situational for sure.
It's very situational. It's not one I would spend points or one of my enhancement slots to use compared to the others.
Yeah, agreed.
As far as your stratagems, this is a very order-focused detachment. This is also the one detachment that gives you the reinforcements stratagem that lets you return infantry regiment units destroyed. Like, you just add 1 back to strategic reserves. It does not note that you can only use it once. So, and I looked and I did not see that in any of the balanced data slates. I know sometimes they can only be used once, but in this case, it does not appear to have that limitation.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Yeah. There are other strats that did not change. Field of Fire, which basically if a regiment and a squadron are shooting at the same target, improve the AP by 1. And Inspired Command, basically in your opponent's command phase, you can issue an order like it was your command phase. The index version used to specify you can't give it to somebody who's battle shocked, but that's just a standard part of the orders rules, so I don't think they could remove that line and still work the same. Then your new stratagems, coordinated action. If you have a regiment unit and a squadron unit that's within 6 inches of it, you can give an order to one of them and they affects both of them. There's flexible command, which allows a unit that could normally only give orders to regiment or squadron to give orders to both, which is really nice if you have a tank commander or you have a commander on foot and you need to give an order to a tank, or a tank needs to give an order to infantry. This allows you to do that. It is expensive at 2 CP, so you won't use it a lot, but it is there. And then finally, Stalwart Protector. This one I have in my notes as Baneblade cover, and the reason I have that is the Baneblade tank has an ability that says, like, hey, if a unit is partially obscured by this tank, then they have the benefit of cover because they're using the tank as mobile cover. This allows any guard vehicle to have that same ability for a turn. That one... It's a back pocket one. I don't see it being used amazingly often. I think you're going to save your CP for things like reinforcements or spreading orders around some more. But yeah, this is like the orders detachment. This is the mixed, the combined arms. Literally, it is the combined arms detachment. That is exactly what it does. If you are used to playing guard, you could continue to use this one, and you won't really have that many changes in how you play. It's a good all-round detachment. But then we get into the 4 new ones. This book does only have 5, and a couple of them kind of surprised me in how they work out, because I don't think they necessarily do. So we'll start off with the Siege Regiment. And when I first saw this, it's like, okay, it's got a rule called artillery support. This is the artillery detachment. This is like the Death Korps of Krieg artillery detachment.
You would think that since they just released a bunch of new artillery models.
Yes.
Anyway.
However, it is not. It does have a rule called artillery support. At the start of each battle round, you select one of the following artillery support types, and these are not once per game. You can use the same one over and over again. You can change them back and forth. There's creeping barrage. Roll a d6 for each enemy unit that is more than 12 inches away from every model from your army that's on the battlefield. On a 5-up, the unit is shaken. When they're shaken, they subtract 2 from their move characteristic and 2 from advance and charge rolls. So, and this is at the start of the battle round. Doesn't matter if you go first or not. So you can either slow down your enemy. There's incendiary bombardment. You select a number of units more than 12 inches away from every model from your army that's on the battlefield. Until the end of the battle round, those enemy units are scattered. They can't have cover. And the number of units, it's 2, 3, or 4, depending on game size. So 2,000 point game. You can select 3 enemy units more than 12 inches away to not have cover. And then finally, smoke shells. You can select the same number of units in your army to have stealth. Depending on what you're fighting, like if you're fighting in an assault-focused army, like against World Eaters, you've maybe got a turn for Creeping Barrage to maybe do something a third of the time.
Yeah, the fact that it has to be 12 inches away from every model in your army is very limiting. Because this is it's a thing that you're only going to get like guaranteed turn 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the only time you're going to guaranteed get it. That's the limiting factor on this. That's like, I don't know that I would. Yeah.
Yeah. And otherwise, this is an infantry/platoon detachment. Platoon units, that's another keyword that it primarily applies to your battle line units. Your enhancements, eager advance. While you're leading a regiment unit has scout 6 inches. Flash grenades, you can't be overwatched. Legacy sidearm, add 2 to your attacks with pistols. And stalwarts honors, while the bearer is leading a unit, when the unit is issued an order, it is also affected by the takes cover order. That's probably the best one in this.
Yeah, I do want to take a moment back to get to Legacy Sidearm. Those 2 extra shots with, las pistol are going to be really useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thematic, but oof.
Yeah, this is...
I know there are other weapons, like you would take it on a plasma pistol or something, but even such, it better be cheap. I haven't looked at the points for that, but that better be a cheap enhancement.
Yeah. None of the, like, there's some interesting play here, but you're... And again, this is like the Death Korps of Krieg detachment, I think, is the goal here.
Yeah.
So you've got trench fighters, you fight on death on a 4-up. If it was a regiment model, you add 2, so you fight on death on a 2-up. And if you were better in melee, that might mean something. But you're a strength 3 army with not many power weapons.
There's a reason you died to begin with. There's a reason you're activating this, guys.
Right. Over the top, select one infantry officer from your army. At the end of the phase, when your model issues the move order, it can issue that order to any number of eligible friendly infantry regiment units, regardless of range to your models. So that's kind of cool because the extra 3 inches of movement will help. Not gonna lie. Flare burst. Select a character that hasn't been selected to shoot. If you target a visible unit within 12 inches, you can reroll the hit rolls. I don't want to be that close, honestly, especially when your army rules want you to be further away than 12.
Yeah.
Callous Sacrifice, it allows you to target a unit that's stuck in with another unit, with an enemy unit. We saw this with the Chaos Knights. I think it was a better call there than it is. I mean, it's very thematic.
Yeah.
But again, none of the units that you have that would be really good at bringing in extra firepower are benefit from this detachment at all. So, Furious Fusillade, select a platoon unit that hasn't been selected to shoot. +1 attacks with ranged weapons when you're at half range. And then Minefield, at the start of your opponent's charge phase, you pick a platoon unit that it ends up in engagement. Like if the enemy unit ends the charge move within engagement range, you roll a d6 for each model in the enemy unit. On a 5-up, they take a mortal wound up to max of 6. That's probably the best, one of the better strats in this detachment. That and Over the Top, I think. Yeah, this one's weird because it's like it wants you to like slow your opponent down before you get up into them, and then it wants you to get up into them. And I see what it's trying to do thematically, but this one does not seem like it clicks for me.
Yeah, unless there were if there were more dedicated like short range and melee units, then I could see this being useful, but I think you want to keep people further away than this.
Right. And yeah, like the fact that, your army rule just kind of stops working when somebody gets too close to you. That's a rough design right there.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Moving on, we've got the Mechanized Assault Detachment. This is your transport detachment. Now, this one I think is a little bit stronger. Every time a guard model from your army makes a ranged attack in a turn in which it disembarked from a transport, add 1 to the wound roll. That is solid. That is very solid, especially when, as I pointed out, this is a strength 3 gun army. That makes a big difference. And putting your army in metal boxes will keep the army alive longer to pop out and shoot. So I think, this is just already better army rule off the top. Your enhancements, and every enhancement, every stratagem in this keys off of transports. So, this is a very, very focused. They want you putting people in chimeras and Taroxes. So, bold leadership, infantry officer only. If you control an objective marker at the end of your command phase and the bearer's unit or any transports it is embarked within is within range of the objective marker, it's sticky. So, you put an officer on in a unit in a chimera, and you drive around from objective to objective and just sticky, that one's mine, that one's mine. That's good. I like that one.
Yeah, that's good. I like that one.
Sacred Unguents, Tech Priest Engine Seer model only. At the start of your shooting phase, select a transport, not counting aircraft and Titanic units within 3 inches. Until the end, every time that transport makes an attack, reroll hits.
Okay.
Not bad. You do have to follow them around on foot. That's the one tricky part. Like, you have to keep up with a vehicle.
Do you at least have lone op to do it?
Yes. Tech priests within 3 inches of a vehicle have lone op. So you can do it. It's just you've got to really hoof it.
Or ask the driver to go really slow.
Yeah. Smoke grenades. The bear's unit has the benefit of cover and stealth while the unit's wholly within 3 inches of one or more friendly transport models. So you could pop out of a transport and still have stealth and cover. That one's not bad. And then Vanguard honors, the unit can disembark from a transport after it's advanced. So you get fast, you can get a vehicle, move faster, and then still pop out and do a thing. Can't charge. And, standard, if you get out of a vehicle after it advanced, special rules. Your strats, Vox Relay. If you have an officer inside a transport, and it does specify you can use this even though the character is in a transport, not on the board, they can issue orders to any other transport order on the board, regardless of range. That's really good. Rapid dispersal. You take, after an infantry unit disembarked from a transport, they get a normal move of d6 inches. Clear and secure. A unit that disembarked from a transport and hasn't been selected to shoot. If you target a unit within range of an objective marker, reroll the hit and wound roll. Basically makes you Tau breachers.
Yeah.
Swift interception. When a enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback move, if they're within 9 inches of you, select a transport. It gets to move 6 inches. Hasty extraction. In your opponent's charge phase, just after they selected a target for charging, you can re-embark in a transport. And then move out at the end of your opponent's turn, provided your unit's not within engagement range of one or more enemy units and every model is within 3 inches of a transport, you can re-embark in the transport. So lots of popping out, getting the extra wound rolls, then means to get back in the vehicle on your opponent's turn. I can totally see how this plays. It's expensive because you'll have to buy a lot of chimeras, but no, it's solid. It knows exactly what it's doing. This is a detachment that wants you to score objectives, get people off of objectives, take them, hold them, and then get back in your vehicles and do it again. I like it.
Yeah.
And while one or two of the things like the Vox Relay does exclude Titanic units, and the Sacred Unguents does not let Titanic transports reroll the hit roll, I will point out that there's at least 2 Baneblade variants that have transport capability, which means they benefit from all the other rules in this. So you can still bring some big guns to the battle. So this one I like. I think this one will play differently than the Combined Arms detachment, but I think the rules all work really well in tandem. Then we get to the Hammer of the Emperor detachment. This is your tank detachment. Every time a squadron unit from your army advances, you don't roll, you just auto-advance 6 inches. And you can move within engagement range of enemy units so long as you don't end in engagement range. This is not bad, except usually when we see a rule like this, it has an addendum of, hey, your squadron units or your vehicles or weapons attached to your vehicles get the assault ability. There is not a single vehicle weapon in this codex that has assault.
Is that a problem?
Yes, because it means that vehicle can't shoot at all.
Is that a problem in a guard army?
The Eldar detachment that for vehicles gives all their weapons assault. Why doesn't this?
Yeah. I was wondering that myself.
Is it bad in a guard army to completely give up all of your shooting for a turn?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that I see. Okay, I see where your problem is.
Yeah.
Or we can spin it, Kevin. Is it bad in a corn army to stand still and not move at all for a turn?
If I'm locked in, no. If I'm locked
if you're
in,
not
melee,
locked
no.
in,
Okay,
no,
then
you're not in melee. Yeah, that's what this is for guard, except in reverse.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
So, your enhancements, these are all for vehicle officers. There are 2 units that are vehicle officers, but that does mean you can have 3 of each of them. So you could use like all 3 of your enhancement slots for these. So your 4 enhancements are Column Under Fire. Once per turn after you issue an order to a squadron, you can issue the same order to another squadron. That's good. Indomitable Steed. The bearer has Feel No Pain 6 up. Regimental Banner, add 3 to your OC. That one's good. I like that one. And Veteran Crew, every time a model in this unit makes a ranged attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. Also very solid. I think the 6 up Feel No Pain is probably the weakest one in the bunch, just because that saves so few wounds. But otherwise, the enhancements aren't bad.
Mm-hmm.
Your strats, Final Hour. In your command phase, you pick a squadron unit from your army below half strength, not counting officers. Officers don't get to do this. Until the end of the battle round, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit, excluding one-shot weapons, have hazardous, and each time a model in your unit makes a ranged attack, ignore any and all modifiers to the ballistic skill characteristic or hit roll. So, like, you could be bracketed, you roll without penalty, but you risk doing more damage as the vehicle's burning around you.
Worth it.
Sometimes it can be. Sometimes it absolutely can be, especially because a lot of your stuff is hitting on 4s and then you're hitting on 5s. If you're bracketed, you need that extra boost, or at least to fight, push away the debuff. Blazing Advance, here you go. Just after a squadron unit from your army advances, until the end of the turn, that unit can shoot in a turn in which it advanced. So 1 unit can make use of the detachment rule and still shoot per turn.
It's more than 0.
It is more than 0, but it's less than it needs to be, especially when this is the army that wants as much squadron as you can. Tactical Withdrawal, you can shoot in a turn which you fill back. That is good. That is very solid. Crash Through lets you move through terrain as if it wasn't there. That one I like.
Yeah.
And you can do it when you charge, too. So if you want to ram someone with a tank, you can absolutely do it through terrain. Furious Cannonade, until the end of your phase, when you shoot a unit within 12 inches, improve the AP by 1. Okay, yeah, this detachment doesn't mind you getting up close, so that's fine. And then a Blade of Plating, select a vehicle unit that was targeted by an enemy unit until the end of the phase. Subtract 1 from the damage of attacks. Which, if you're dealing with anti-vehicle fire, that's not bad.
Yeah,
that could make the difference between life and death for a unit. This one seems so close. It's like the detachment rule boggles me that they left out giving assault, but I see they moved it to a stratagem. It's like it frustrates me because it is so close. But I just can't get past that one thing. It gives you an army rule, which a 6-inch auto advance is nice because there's nothing worse than rolling like when you have to advance and you roll a 1. I totally get that. It's just the rest of it. The fact that you give up all your shooting still just.
I mean, unless you have to get to that objective.
Right. I mean, there are going to be instances when the detachment rule is clutch. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, why isn't it then just a stratagem, not a detachment rule?
It should be a stratagem. It should absolutely be a stratagem instead. Because 1 unit, or I can't say 1 unit, but like 1 unit can take full advantage of it. Other units, I suppose, if you're trying to get into a position to score, but it's like you're going to have vehicles that don't move because they're like artillery pieces and you don't want to move them. Or you're going to have tanks that are trying to move to line up a good shot. You don't want to give up your shot. So it's like, really, you're only going to use this on like a couple of units a turn. It's not the best detachment rule. There could be better ones for vehicles. Like, this is half of a good detachment rule. And then finally, our last detachment is the recon element. And this one surprised me. Why are the Catachin getting their own detachment?
Because people like Catachin?
I guess so. I mean, they're featured in the artwork, and this is absolutely the Catachin detachment, like how it's played. Walker and regiment models from your army have cover. If they get cover from any other reason, because like they're wholly in a ruin is the example they give, you improve their save by 1. This is not a bad rule. It's just this detachment kind of boggles me that it exists, especially because like all the almost all the stratagems are reactive. We'll get to that in a second. Your enhancements, guerrilla honors. After both players have deployed their armies, you can redeploy up to 3 other infantry units from your army and set them up as strategic reserves if you want. Okay, yeah, that one's fine. Redeploy is always a good ability. Scare gas grenades. Once per battle, at the start of any phase, you can use this enhancement. Select an enemy unit that's not a monster or vehicle within 8 inches. Force a battle shock test. Okay, you can make Dennis fail a battle shock test.
Oh, trust me, I will.
Yeah. Survival gear. The bear has scout 6 inches. Good, especially if you're putting it on it. If he's going to be joining a unit that also has scouts. And then tripwires. Anytime an enemy infantry or mounted unit ends a normal, advanced charge, or fallback move within 9 inches of you, roll a d6. On a 4-up, the unit is stunned until the start of your next turn. While a unit is stunned, they are -1 to hit. Again, not terrible. I think the redeploy is probably the best one in the bunch. The others are okay. And then you get into your strats. The one non-reactive strat is crack shots. Gives a platoon unit precision. Okay, cool. Yeah. Turning a whole unit of guardsmen into snipers, not bad. And then we get into the rest of our reactives. So draw them out. When an enemy finishes a move within 9 inches of you and it is in engagement range, you can make a normal move of 6 inches. Scramble field. At the start of your opponent's reinforcement step, you pick an infantry unit. They can't deep strike anybody within 12, or can't come in as reinforcements within 12 inches of them. Being able to do that, usually we see that on like a unit ability. And so when your opponent's like, okay, well, I can't deep strike anything within, like near that unit, but there's other places I can go. This is a case of, where's my opponent going to drop a unit in? Where's it going to cause me the most trouble? Yeah, you can't now. That one's solid. I like that one. Courageous diversion. Select an infantry or mounted unit from your army until the end of the phase. And this is in the shooting phase. Until the end of the phase, you have feel no pain 6 up. And each time an enemy unit makes an attack, if your unit is the closest target, subtract 1 from the hit roll. It's okay. It's fine, I guess. 6 up feel no pain is always kind of like, it's okay. Tanglefoot grenades. Select a grenades unit from your army. When an opponent tries to charge you, they're -2 to the charge roll. Not cumulative with any other modifiers to the charge roll, but -2 charge is always good. And then scouting outriders. Select a mounted or walker unit from your army that's wholly within 10 inches of a battlefield edge and not in engagement range. Put them in strategic reserves. Like, I see what it's doing, and it's not bad. I like it better than the siege regiment for sure. This strikes me as a fluffy catechin detachment rather than a detachment that's like, it's not a strong gameplay detachment, but it'd be a fun one to play narratively. Honestly, if all of these, like, combined arms is still just generally the best one. Like, if I had to pick one that's like, oh yes, you can take this one with any guard army and it will always be good no matter what. I mean, combined arms is just the most solid. And mechanized assault, I think, has got some real potential too. The others just, am I alone here? Does the others just seem to kind of come up short here or there?
Yeah, I mean, again, none of us are like super deep into, guard tactics, but they don't seem like they add enough to, to a specifically toughness 3 strength shooting army. You either want to be in places where you don't really want to be, or it requires it's like half the abilities you need to really make it work. So I don't know. I could see the recon one. That's probably, in my opinion, is probably the second best one, because I think the mechanized one just, I don't know that it gives enough benefits. But the recon element, I could definitely see it, like, if you're doing a heavy, like, Death Riders or Rough Riders detachment, being able to get some use out of it. Walkers, the Sentinels are pretty good. There's some variety in there. So like I could see there being some use in that, but I don't know. The combined arms is still the best.
Yeah. As I look at it more, the recon element almost feel, because everything is reactive and it kind of gets in the sense of, yeah, I'm going to do things that are going to disrupt my opponent, especially as they get closer to me, or if I need to reposition something, like I said, with mounted units. Like, I almost like this one better as a Death Korps of Krieg.
Right. That's kind of what I was, that's kind of what I was thinking about as I was reading through it. I'm like, you could still use this and this. And so I think that's an interesting one to try out. I don't think it's better than combined arms, though.
No, combined arms is still absolutely just there is no bad choice to take in the combined arms detachment. Like, there is nothing that won't work with it. So now we're going to get into data sheets. We are not going to obviously do like full read-throughs because we have an hour left to record, and B, there's a fair number of units in this book, and honestly, there are a number of changes. I have like a page or so, like page and a half of changes, but most of them are small tweaks. And there are a few new units as well. And some of them kind of surprised me. But first, as always, pour one out for the units that did not make it from the index to the codex. So obviously a couple we expected, Iron Hand Straker and Sergeant Harker, some old Catachan characters who are no longer made in plastic. They were never made in plastic and they're no longer available. Those are gone. Not surprising. The regimental attaches. So like your master of the fleet, your master of munitions, things like that. Your nat or like Astropath, those are gone. Munitorum servitors, we've seen a lot of armies drop servitors. Again, not surprising. That one, when I couldn't find that one in here, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. The two that surprised me, the platoon command squad and the infantry squad are gone. Now you'd be like, wait a minute, those are your main command and battle line units. Well, because they don't make the generic ones, which were never really generic, they were always meant to look like Cadians. They don't make those units anymore, so they have been replaced with like the Cadian command squad. Now they used to be in the codex, or in the index, you had both available, like the generic and the Cadian, and they did slightly different things. Now there is just the Cadian command squad, although they've added 2 new command squads, and there's the Cadian infantry squad, the Cadian shock troopers, but there's also 2 other, there's a Krieg and a Catachan infantry choice too. So we've gone from, we've gotten rid of the generic infantry or platoon command squad and gone to, there are these 3 particular flavors of command squad and infantry and heavy weapon squad. The generic heavy weapon squad has been replaced with 3 different heavy weapon squads as well, depending on whether you like sleeves, no sleeves, or gas masks. That's really what it is. If you look at the models. So I was surprised to see them gone, which also means that if you want to play one of those other detachments like Valhallans or Mordians or Talarn or Armageddon, or get a bit further afield, Vestroyan Firstborn or Praetorians or Elysian drop troops, you're gonna have to pick which of these 3 flavors, Cadian, Catachan, or Krieg, fits you better, and go in that direction.
Which isn't the worst option, because like in most cases you're probably just going to pick the Cadians because there's the most options. Right. But yeah, it's weirdly restrictive. Like or I guess it feels weirdly restrictive. I don't know that it actually is, but yeah, it feels kind of weird and arbitrary. I remember when they did this in the 9th edition codex and like broke out, Krieg and Catachan jungle fighters as like their own separate infantry units, and I was like, that's weird. Why would you do that? I don't know. It gives you a couple of different, options, I guess, for weapons and stuff. And they probably map on well to like what other people want to do with the other regiments. But yeah, it feels arbitrarily restrictive.
Right. And again, this is we don't make that kit anymore, so we are going to make everything match the kits we do make, which for newer players, that makes this much easier. There's a very clear one-to-one, hey, I'm playing Cadian shock troops, well, here's the rules for Cadian shock troops, so I get it. but I do feel like there's a little something lost and some unnecessary split ups, but we'll get there when we get there. So starting from the top, and we're mostly going to hit the differences in the new units here. So you've got Lord Solar Leontis, which was like the must-have character for a long time. He's pretty much unchanged from his index version, and that is surprising, other than he can join Death Riders and Combat Krieg Krieg Combat Engineers. So they did expand what units he can join. He still says he can give orders up to 3 orders to Astra Militarum units, and I'm wondering how that's going to interact with the balanced data slate, if the balanced data slate will still sit on top of the new codex, because the balanced data slate says he can only give them to regiment and squadron units, which cuts out things like Ogren and like Baneblades and Titan, like super heavies.
Yeah. I imagine they'll FAQ that, or they'll be like, no, it should match the data slate, because I can't imagine they intend him to be able to give like a shadow stored orders.
Right. Moving on, Ursula Creed, who is your like Cadian named character of choice. Her big change there is she used to only be able to give 2 orders to regiment units. She can now give 3. And also, when she's leading a unit, the unit can be affected by 2 different orders at the same time. This is this was an ability she had in the index, but it's just good to point out that she is like, very solid order machine here, and being able to give a 3rd order, very good for her. The Cadian Castellan, which is a generic Castellan, can now give 2 orders instead of 1. So again, as I mentioned earlier, they're kind of bumping up the number of orders they can give, and that's 2 orders to regiment units. So primarily.
So Rob, I'm just going to vent my complaint here. Militarum orders are the key thing of their book, and they're increasing what you can use with it, while Sisters, Miracle Dice are a key thing of your book, and they're cutting down how many. I'm sorry, I'm just frustrated still.
No, I understand you're venting. I will say orders are far less powerful than dice fixing.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Maybe if we had less dice fixing and more just they fuel the powers, that might balance. I don't know. Sisters need help.
Yeah, they do very much need help. And then we get into our command squads. We have the Cadian Command Squad. Their special rule, first off, they can issue 1 order to a regiment unit to differentiate them from the other command squads. When they're within range of objective marker, they have cover, they have benefit of cover. And the one change they made is the metapacks used to give Feel No Pain 6 up. And you know how I feel about Feel No Pain 6 up. I've made that pretty clear so far. They got rid of that. It now just restores D3 destroyed platoon models to the unit. So you can, it won't help you shave off wounds at the beginning, but to be fair, it really hardly ever did. Instead, as long as the unit didn't get wiped out and the person with the metapack is still around, they can keep repopulating the unit, which is similar to how the metapacks work for Death Korps of Krieg.
I'm going to hope they make that change for Votann, because Votann metapacks still just are the 6 up Feel No Pain. So come on, Votann Codex.
Yeah. I hope so, yes, because I think it's a better... It kind of gets back to how apothecaries used to work back in the day, where they would just restore units, and so I think having something that feels a little bit more consistent is good. They also have access to a Master Vox, which lets you give orders up to 24 inches away, because that's important, because normally, again, orders have to be within 6 inches. So that's why it's why would I take a command squad over a Castellan? That might be why, because they don't have to be as close to issue orders. However, they can only be attached to Cadian shock troops, so you can't mix and match them with Catachin or Death Korps of Krieg, so just be aware of that. Then we get into some new units with the Krieg Command Squad, which the models for that are not out, but that is the one that includes a Lord Commissar, which I'm here for. Their rule is when this unit contains an officer, they can be used strats even when they're battle shocked, and orders do not cease to affect this unit if it becomes battle shocked. So they will always be able to take orders, even if they are battle shocked. They do not have a med pack, however. They have alchemic counter agents, which gives them Feel No Pain 6 up against mortal wounds. Now it's well, that's a downgrade, but they can join Death Korps of Krieg, which has access to the meta pack, so they're fine. And servo scribes once per battle. When issuing an order, a Lord Commissar can issue an additional order. This, much like the command squad, they can issue 1 order to a regiment unit. And they have access to a lot of the same kinds of stuff that the Cadian Command Squad does. Flamers, grenade launchers, plasma guns, etc. Melta-guns. And then there's Lord Marshal Dreer, who is the new character in the army box. He's got Feel No Pain 6-up built in. He can give 3 orders to regiment units, so can't give them to squadrons, so this makes him feel a bit more... I guess they want you to use him in the siege regiment, I suppose, or in the recon detachment. The first time he dies, once per day, when he dies, on a 2-up, he gets back up within D3 with D3 wounds remaining. And when he's leading it doesn't even have to be leading unit. Anytime this model's unit makes a charge move until the end of the turn, melee weapons equipped by models in that unit have devastating wounds. And he can join Death Riders only.
Which is awesome because Death Riders have lance weapons and can actually get some shit done. So
right,
yeah, they're gonna be devastating on the charge if he's attached.
Yeah, and then the third command squad, the Catechin Command Squad, which again can be equipped like most of the other command squads. Cadians and Kriegers do not have access to sniper rifles. The Catechin Command Squad does. And they have the Gung Ho command. While this unit contains an officer, ranged weapons equipped by models in this unit have the assault ability. And they also have the same metapack update. I'd say update. I don't think they were a separate unit before. They were not. They are a new unit, but they have a metapack like the Cadian one. And they can only join Cadian jungle fighters. So you have 3 flavors of guard. I hope you like one of them.
Yep.
You've got Sly Marbo, who is Rambo. And it's anagram Rambo.
Wait, is that what that's a reference to?
Yes.
I didn't know.
I'm still sad that they get to keep him, but I don't get my Inspector Clouseau.
Yeah, he's
to be fair, there's never been an Inspector Obi-Wan Sherlock Clouseau model, so
that's true. Although Games Day, that could be one of the special Games Day models or whatever.
I'm for it.
I also like to point out he is a regiment model, which means he can be issued orders too.
But will he follow them?
Yes, he will. But yeah, he's basically, if you're playing Catechin, and also I'd like to point out Catechin, Krieg, and Cadian, there is no keyword specifically for them. They have the keyword of... No, I take that back. The Catechin Command Squad does actually have the Catechin keyword.
Yeah.
The Krieg one does. The Cadians... Okay. But the Cadian Castellan does not have the Cadian keyword. The Cadia keyword. Or the Cadian keyword. Ursula Creed doesn't have the Cadian keyword. So they put in a keyword, I guess, for kind of future-proofing this. But I don't think there's anything that keys off of it. So...
Yeah.
It's a little bit weird. And Sly Marbo does not have the Catechin keyword. But basically, he is somebody you infiltrate in. He's got lone op, and he just causes havoc, and then
they make a movie
disappears. About it. Yeah. Moving on, we've got the Lehman Russ Commander. This used to be called the Tank Commander. He's functionally identical to the Tank Commander, and he can be built with any variety of Lehman Russ tank, because they basically represent all the defaults to the Lehman Russ battle cannon, and you can change it for any of the Lehman Russ tank cannons. And he shoots on death on a 2-up, which is also what the Tank Commander did in the Index. And he can give up to 2 orders to squadron units. Tank Commanders used to only be 1, so that is a notable upgrade there. He's if you had a Tank Commander before, this is your Tank Commander. He got slightly better. They've also added the ability to have a Rogel Dorn Commander tank, who can also give 2 orders to squadron units, does not get to shoot on death. Instead, every time this model is selected to shoot, you can reroll a hit roll, a wound roll, and a damage roll. That is just...
Didn't we learn anything from the Eldar doing all of that?
Yeah, I know. Well, at least it's only one unit rather than the entire detachment. But
yeah, but this is for Imperium, so it's fine.
Yeah. And the only time when re-rolling damage roll will matter is if you hit with the Melta-Gun or multi-meltas that it can take. Although, again, rolling extra damage with, rolling crap on a Melta-Gun always hurts, so being able to re-roll that is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Still, though, this is a ballistic skill 4 army. So, like, that is just something to be aware of, that you don't necessarily get, like, your characters don't always, or often don't, shoot better.
Yeah.
We'll just tell them to shoot more then.
I mean, yeah. You can make it up in volume.
You kind of have to. I mean, that, again, that is this army's thing. But yeah, that was the same in the index. It was all 4 up, for tank commanders.
Yeah.
So, no change there. But being able to issue an extra order is good. No complaints there. Let's see. You've got, like, the Premier Psyker didn't really change. Nork Dead Dog, who is a named Ogren bodyguard, who has a speaker with a little commissar hat on it, which has always been my favorite detail about his model. The change, I mean, he's a solid add-on character. They did specify he can't be your warlord. That was one change they made. Curse them. I can no longer have Nork Dead Dog lead an army.
Yeah. No, all orc army. Ogre army.
And yes, he still has the ability to cause mortal wounds with a headbutt when selected to fight, and not just a few. Like, he can do up to like D3+3 mortal wounds with his head. The only other change besides saying he can't be your warlord is they changed his Ripper gun to match the other Ripper guns. His gun used to be sustained hits 1. It's now rapid fire 3 instead. Now, granted, it is an 18-inch range, so if you want to get that rapid fire, you have to be within 9 inches.
Yeah, but he doesn't care as much about being close.
This is very true. And then we have Gaunt's Ghosts, which is a named one-off unit. It's a fun unit. It's a whole bunch of individual characters smushed together into one unit. Fantastic models, and definitely, I will say, spoilers, not all these people survive the Gaunt's Ghosts book series. So this is Gaunt's Ghosts at the beginning of Gaunt's Ghosts.
Spoilers, most of them won't even go to the end of the battle.
Yeah.
Also true.
I do like that they have kept this unit in here, though, because these are cool models. I don't know that anybody will really use them, but they're good models, and I'm glad that they kept them in the book and they didn't move them to Legends.
Actually, you know where I would use these if I wanted to do a Tanith first and only army and build them with the recon detachment.
Sure. Yeah.
Since that's kind of like the Tanith thing.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Also, because they already have the benefit of cover, because they have camo cloaks that give them benefit of cover, they will automatically get the armor benefit from the recon detachment.
True. Yeah.
They're not a bad take in that detachment. We've got the Militarum Tempestus Command Squad, which also has the same metapack change of restoring D3 destroyed Tempestus units rather than a 6-up Fail No Pain. Otherwise, it's the same. They give sustained hits 1. They can only join Tempestus Scions. If you are playing Tempestus, which you've got the Bridgehead Assault detachment from Grotmus, this is where you're most likely to see these. There's the Ministorum Priest. Main updates there is the model has been updated to match the 2 new Ministorum Priest models, so you can either do the Pistol and Power Weapon or the Vindictor Chainsaw Flamer. You can use either of them as your priest. Otherwise,
so this priest is now in 3 codexes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And works slightly differently in all of them.
Hey, the model's getting a lot of work done, though.
The models are making the rounds. Tech Priest Engine Seer, also available in 2 different armies. And this is your vehicle healer, effectively, and the one that can actually get a benefit in that the Hammer of the Emperor detachment. And then the Commissar, who pretty much unchanged, still has the ability to destroy a model in a unit after select a Militarum unit within 12 inches that is battle shocked to destroy destroy a model in the unit, and the unit is no longer battle shocked. And if he's in a unit that also has an officer, you can reroll battle shock tests for that unit because he's always watching. Let's see. And then we get into our 3 troop choices. Cadian shock troops, which their thing is they have sticky objectives, which is always good. And their gear is based off of what is in the Cadian Shock Troops kit. So they have access to like flamers, grenade launchers, melta-guns, plasma guns, an auto gun on the sergeant, chainsword on the sergeant. The Death Korps of Krieg, which their difference is slightly different weapons. They can take a long las instead of the sergeant's auto guns. They have a sniper rifle. They have a metapack. And they did change how the metapack works, because this unit can go up to 20, and it says for every 10 models in the unit, one Death Korps trooper equipped with a lasgun can also get a metapack. And it used to be, it's like, well, hey, the bearer of the metapack can restore D3 models. Now, if a unit has 2 models equipped with a Death Korps metapack, it restores D3 plus 1. Death Korps Krieg had potential to just like, unless you killed a bunch of them, just never die.
I mean, that's how I feel about Necrons.
Yeah, but that's kind of their shtick.
And then their thing is Grim Demeanor. Every time they make an attack, they add 1 to the hit roll if they're below starting strength and 1 to the wound roll if they're below half strength. They basically have the Hallowed Martyrs from Sisters all the time. And then there's the Catachan Jungle Fighters, which were actually in the index. They still have Scout 6 inches, which works nicely again with that recon detachment. You can attach a character to them and actually give them Scout 6 inches as well. And their Jungle Fighters ability used to be when they make a melee attack, if they charge or were charged, you would add 1 to the strength and AP of the attack. Now it is instead they add 1 to the wound roll. And when you're a strength 3 army, 1 to the wound roll is way better than +1 strength.
Yes.
However, as far as weapon options, I hope you like las guns and a flamer, because that's what they can take.
I was going to say
flashlights.
It's so interesting compared to like the new Krieg and the new Cadian like units, how many more options there are. Like this data sheet is so tiny compared to the others.
Right.
And it's all comes down to the fact that, yeah, we just don't have those models.
Right. Let's see. We've got Kasserkin, which are your like Cadian elite troops. Don't have the Cadian keyword. The Death Korps Krieg doesn't have the Krieg keyword. The Cadian shock troops don't have the Cadian keyword. Just like the Catachan Jungle Fighters don't have the Catachan keyword. Still confused why they bothered making that a separate keyword for a couple of models. But Kasserkin basically are like, what if you gave Cadians the hotshot las guns that Tempestus Scions have? And they're also a kill team. So that's why they have a data sheet.
They're cool looking models. So
they are cool looking models. Don't get me wrong. They're very nice. Then we've got Krieg Combat Engineers. This is a new one. This is a unit that is in the box set that they are going to be releasing. Or that will be up for pre-order by the time you hear this.
Yep.
They also have Scout 6 inches, which would also make them work nicely with the recon. They can use the grenade stratagem for free once per turn. And they have the remote mine that can... you target an enemy unit within 12 inches, they take D6 mortal wounds on a 3-up, or if it's a vehicle or fortification, D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. And that's the Death Roomba, the Boomba.
Yeah, and it's an adorable little Roomba model. So,
I mean, they're fine. They're just additional Krieg units. Yeah, they're okay.
Yeah, no.
Although I will point out they're also armed with auto pistols and trench clubs rather than las guns. So this is their longest range. In fact, all of their ranged weapons are 12-inch range. So this is a get up close and beat on people. You've got Tempestus Scions, which again are your elite troops. They reroll wound rolls of 1 if you're targeting somebody within range of objective marker. You reroll wound rolls, so they're nice and consistent. They lost the deep strike rule. And then there's the Tempestus Aquilons, which are, what if we took Tempestus Scions and strapped jetpacks or grav chutes to them so they can drop in? They still have the 3-inch deep strike. I imagine that will also be, they'll have the data slate fix applied to them as well. So they can only come in at 6 inches. Otherwise, I believe they're the same as the one-off data sheet they released for them. Ogryn Bodyguard which is basically the generic version of Nork Dead Dog also has the cute little commissar hat on the speaker, which I really do like, as I said. Did lose a rule. They used to have a rule called redoubled loyalty. If the officer that was attached to them lost a wound, they would get +1 to hit and +1 to wound. They no longer have that ability. Nothing replaces it. They just don't have it anymore. You've got your Ogren and Bulgren squads. They have not changed. They are still, slabs of meat that you can put up front to take hits. Then we get to our weapon squads. There was once just the heavy weapon squad. It is now the Cadian heavy weapon squad. It has the same ability, which was when you fire Overwatch, you Overwatch on 5s. You Overwatch on 4s if you're within 6 inches of one or more friendly platoon units, which again are primarily your battle line units. All the standard heavy weapon choices: autocannon, heavy bolter, las cannon, missile launcher, mortar. All heavy, so they don't want you to move, which is also why they're all ballistic skill 5. So again, they don't want you to move.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is your traditional heavy weapons team. Then there's the Catechin heavy weapons squad, which has all the same weapon options, has scout 6 inches, and instead of the covering fire, has bring it down. Each time you target a monster or vehicle, reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1. Not bad.
Useful.
Yeah. And then there's the Krieg heavy weapons squad, which is based on some new models, which I don't think they are not included in the box, from what I understand.
No, they're not.
Coming later. And then this has, for one thing, they have a separate model called the Fire Coordinator, who is not part of the weapon teams. The Fire Coordinator, while this unit contains a Fire Coordinator, each time a heavy weapons gunner model is destroyed, they get to shoot on death on a 3-up. The only heavy weapons you have, though, you have the las cannon, which is always good. You have the heavy stubber, the twin heavy stubber, which is strength 6, rapid fire 3, twin linked with AP -1, or the Krieg heavy flamer which is an 18-inch ignores cover torrent. I mean, the heavy stubber isn't a bad comparison to the heavy bolter. It does less damage per shot, but it's got slightly more range. It's twin linked and gets more shots, so I don't hate it. I still like the las cannon best for them, and getting a las cannon that can shoot on death, I think that's going to be the better choice.
Yeah, I think the flamer was only in there because I believe there was a flamer artillery piece in the Forge World line.
Yeah,
so they're like, we want to give options for being able to use that model, which I get it. Like, it looks cool, but yeah. Las cannon or flamer, you're always going to go las cannon, I think.
Yeah.
unless they bring points back and it becomes cheaper.
Anyway. I've heard rumors. that we could be seeing some return to war gear points. We'll see. I have no evidence of that.
That'll be a nightmare to retroactively apply to all the codexes, by the way. But anyway.
That's why we ignore the points pages at the end of a codex.
Yeah.
You've got the new artillery team for Krieg. It's got some decent guns. The siege cannon's particularly nice. Strength 12.
Yeah.
AP -2, 3 damage, D6 attacks. All these have 48-inch range. Multiple rocket launcher, which is anti-infantry 3-up. Heavy quad launcher, which is a classic Krieg thing. Twin linked. Only strength 5, but also blast and 2d6 attacks. The heavy mortar, strength 8, AP -1, 2 damage, d6 plus 3 attacks. So all these are good guns. And like you were saying, Kevin, it's figuring out which one you want to build your artillery team as.
Because the siege cannon, in my opinion, is the coolest looking one, and it's the most iconic. But the other options are also really good. So
yeah. And if they hit if they hit with one of their indirect fire weapons, although it doesn't have to be fired as indirect fire, just, basically it doesn't count if you only hit them with a las gun that's on somebody. If they score a hit against an enemy unit, the unit must make a battle shock test. If it's an infantry unit hit by the multiple rocket launcher, they subtract 1 from the battle shock test when doing so. So it is a big gun that also inflicts battle shock, or tries to inflict battle shock. And then alongside that, you've got the field ordnance batteries, which are the smaller artillery units they released not too long ago. They're pretty much unchanged from the index. Adelan Rough Riders. Now we're getting into horsies. Adelan Rough Riders, they lost the ability to ignore penalties or modifiers to their move and advance rolls, but otherwise they can still shoot and charge after falling back, which is good because a lot of their stuff has lance, so they definitely want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then you've got Death Riders, which are the new unit from the army box. They have a screening line ability once per turn. When an enemy unit ends within a normal advance or fallback move within 9 inches, you get to move up 6 inches. They've got assault carbines, frag lances, which are anti-infantry lances, and that's pretty much it. They don't have like the melt-a-tip lances that the Rough Riders have. So one is definitely like the Rough Riders are the more well-rounded choice, but the Death Riders are the cooler looking choice, I think.
Agreed.
You've got the Ratlings updated from the new datasheet they put out because of the Brutal and Cunning Kill Team box. They are pretty much unchanged other than they can now go up to 10 models, and if they have 10 models, they can have the new weapon options from the Kill Team. So like a Tank Stopper Rifle, which is a Strength 9 AP -3 D6 damage rifle, which is not terrible. I don't know if I'd use it against tanks much, but it'll ruin a character's day.
Yeah.
And then they've got plenty of sniper rifles. They have the Ratling Battle Mutt, who can give your ranged weapons lethal hits once per game. I don't hate it. And then demo gear, which allows the unit to have grenades. All good. Like, they're totally fine. Armored Sentinels and Scout Sentinels, same stat lines, same weapon options. They did have one change to Scout Sentinels. Scout Sentinels have a daring recon ability. At the start of your shooting phase, you pick an enemy unit within 18 inches, and anytime a guard unit fires at that unit, they reroll ones to hit. That's a very good ability. They also used to have an ability that let you remove the penalty from indefect fire weapons against them. So like you wouldn't get the -1 to hit somebody you couldn't see. That is gone. Indirect fire takes a bit of a nerf in this book, as we'll get once we start getting to the artillery, because like one thing I noticed, like the artillery team weapons, they are heavy, but they're hitting on 5s. Same with the field ordnance battery, heavy, hitting on 5s. Then you get into when we get to the like artillery vehicles, we'll start seeing some other changes. You've got the Tarox and the Tarox Prime. One is primarily for Tempestus, one is for all Astra Militarum. They're okay. They ain't no chimeras though. They do let you do the rapid deployment where you can get out after advancing without having to have a special upgrade or anything. So, like, you still might use these in the mechanized assault detachment, but I think chimeras are going to generally do better for you, especially because the chimera is tough 9 as opposed to tough 8, which does make a difference. Also has an extra wound, so the chimera is just a better vehicle overall than the Tarox. The Chimera, pretty much unchanged. It still lets you give orders from within the Chimera, even though the officer's not on the battlefield, so that's all still fine. The multi-laser is still, or the lasgun array is still a 6-shot rapid-fire 6 set of lasguns sticking out the back. Yeah, the Chimera is the classic guard vehicle, still very solid. Still a good choice. And also lets you can kit it out with, multi-lasers, heavy bolters, heavy flamers. Like you can give it some passable weaponry. It can still take a 100 killer missile. And then you get into the various shades of Leman Russ. Most of these did not change. They all have the special abilities they had before. So Leman Russ is good at hitting people on objective markers. Leman Russ Demolishers, good at fighting close up, the no penalties to being in engagement range, and you can fire your blast, like your Demolisher battle cannon, at engagement range, even though it's blast. The Vanquisher, good at wounding monsters or vehicles. The Executioner, good at hitting things that are below half strength. The Lemurus Punisher, devastating wounds against non-monster, non-vehicle units, and has 20 shots with the Punisher Gatling cannon.
They're still missing the best Leman Russ, though.
Yes, I know. You want You want
Lehman Russ Primarch.
Yes.
Well, what I actually want, because this is the thing that I did miss out of the, I think, 8th edition codex, was you take Tank Commander Pask and put him in a Lehman Russ Punisher, and you got like a ridiculous amount of shots that were all devastating, and just a lot of fun.
Alas, we don't. Pask didn't even make it into the index, let alone the codex.
Yeah.
You've got the Lehman Russ Exterminator, which is the tag somebody and everybody else shooting at that target is it has their AP improved by 1. The one Lehman Russ that changed was the Lehman Russ Eradicator, and that's because the Eradicator used to have the exact same ability as the Demolisher, shooting, no penalty to shoot in engagement range. They changed that because they didn't want to have 2 tanks with the same ability and very similar guns, because the Nova Cannon's weaker than the Demolisher Battle Cannon, but ignores cover, so they changed its urban warfare ability to say, like, if this tank has cover against an attack, you subtract 1 from the incoming damage. So it is made to be used in a situation where it will be partially obscured and thus have cover, but deny cover to other units. So it's really made to be like hunting down infantry in urban landscapes. You've got the Rogel Dorn, which is the new like mid-range between the Lehman Russ and the Baneblade. Still can ignore once per battle, can reduce damage down to 0 on an attack. Still made of gun.
Still doesn't have a bottom panel.
Still doesn't have a bottom panel. And then we get into our artillery vehicles. The Basilisk lost heavy from the Earthshaker cannon, which means if it sits still, it does not hit on 3s. I mean, granted, it would still only be hitting on 4s because you're most likely firing indirect on it, but it doesn't get any benefit from standing still. Which does mean your Basilisk can move and shoot. That's nice, I guess. But it also means if you have line of sight to somebody, you don't get any benefit for standing still. You're still only hitting on 4s. And it also means that with indirect fire, you are going to be still hitting on 5s because you're still -1 to hit indirectly. So you can't sit still to counteract the penalty from indirect fire. So your indirect fire vehicles are getting worse. The Hydra, unchanged, which that's your anti-fly vehicle. The Manticore, which is the rocket version of the Basilisk. Storm Eagle rockets also lost heavy. So again, you do not get to override the penalty from indirect fire. The Wyvern also lost heavy from the quad Storm Shard mortar. So again, you cannot overcome the penalty from indirect fire. They wanted to really tone down indirect fire in this book, I can tell. And that's been a struggle. GW has been trying to figure out how to balance indirect fire, and so far they haven't quite found it, so all they have is nerfs at this point. So we'll see what this does. I imagine guard players will not be happy with this change.
I mean, we could always have this thing called a scatter die, and you roll 2d6, subtract your ballistics.
God, no. Scatter dice are worse.
It'll never work. Also, I've played against Wyverns where a squadron of Wyverns drops 30 templates on you, and it is a nightmare to figure out, and I hated it. So This is better.
This is better. Random number of attacks is better. And then there's the Death Strike missile, which is unchanged. It is still ridiculous and kind of stupid and silly and fun. I don't know if it is good in any way, shape, or form, but it is fun.
Look, the one time every 10 games that it does something, it's gonna be epic.
Right. You've got the Hellhound, which is what if we put a giant flamer on top of a Chimera and replace the people inside with fuel?
That can't end poorly. Anyway, sorry.
I will say that most Chimera-based vehicles, and Lehman Russes as well, most of the vehicles in here are Deadly Demise D3. The Hellhound is Deadly Demise D6, which tells you how much fuel has been poured into the back of that thing. And then we have all the super heavy variants. The Baneblade, which provides cover if somebody has blocked it, and has the all around good super heavy tank. It is not squadron, so you cannot give it orders from a tank commander. Also, you can't, and you may not be able to give it orders from Lord Solar Leontis, depending on whether or not they keep the balance status change.
I think they're gonna fix that. Yeah,
they will most likely fix that. There's the Bane Hammer, which has a tremor cannon that can force infantry within the target unit, and all infantry within 3 inches of it must take a battle shock test. Also has a transport capacity of 26 models. The Bane Sword, which has the Quake Cannon, a strength 16 AP -4, 4 damage gun. Not the most powerful one we're going to talk about. It is also blast, ignores cover, and D6 plus 6 attacks. And if it causes something with deadly demise to be destroyed, they deadly demise on a 3-up instead of a 6. So Bane Sword makes thing go boom. The Hellhammer, which doesn't suffer any penalties for shooting in engagement range, and has the Hellhammer cannon, which is blast, which it can't fire in engagement range. It doesn't specify that, but this is one of your anti-infantry tanks. The Stormlord, which has the Vulcan Mega Bolter on it, also has a transport capacity of 40.
All of your eggs literally in one giant basket.
Weren't we complaining about them not having that transport capacity earlier?
No, we were pointing out that there were two Baneblade variants that had transport capacity.
We were complaining about transports not having that transport capacity.
Right.
This isn't a transport.
Although this is a transport.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not a dedicated transport. Like that's
okay. I'll grant you that one.
Yeah.
But it is a transport, so it would benefit from a lot of the stuff in the mechanized assault detachment. Yeah. And its rule is if there's no models currently in the transport, you can pick a unit within 6 inches of it and put them in the transport. No, I like the Stormlord a lot. Yeah, I think it's cool. There's the Storm Sword, which has a siege cannon, and you can call it's like, so you roll a d6 for the target unit, and every other unit within 3 inches of that target on a 5-up, they're stuck by a concussive wave and they take d3 mortal wounds. Also, it's a strength 16 gun that does d6 plus 2 damage with d6 plus 6 shots and ignores cover, so have fun. The Doom Hammer, which if it's targeting a monster or vehicle, its magma cannon is always considered to be within half range for the purpose of Melta. And it's Melta 6. And then the Shadow Sword with the most powerful gun we'll be talking about. D3 plus 1 shots, 96-inch range, strength 24, AP -5, 12 damage.
The only disappointment that I have with this, and this is a very minor thing, it doesn't wound Bane Blades on a 2. Or it doesn't, it doesn't get the extra. That's the only downside. It's so close, but it doesn't quite get there.
Right. And if it's targeting a monster or vehicle, it has devastating wounds.
I mean, that makes up.
Yeah. Yeah, like the Baneblade variants, they all have their roles to play. They're all fun. They're all fun. Again, none of them have the squadron keyword, so no, you will not be giving them orders. But that's fine. They're fine. I think they'll be just fine without it. And then the last two things: the Valkyrie is a flyer and still generally sucks because it is a flyer, but you no longer have to have deep strike to be dropped out of one.
Yeah, the fact that this has like transport capacity and can drop people on the battlefield makes this one more useful than other flyers. It's not good, but it's better.
Yeah, it's better. And for like Tempestus Scions, it's been part of their thing. Yeah. So, it has a place. It's still not great because aircraft are generally weird in this edition, but it's not terrible. Like I of all the aircraft, I hate you the least. And then the Aegis defense line, one of the few faction fortifications we still see, is pretty much unchanged from its index version. It still gives you cover and a 4-up invulnerable save if you're a guard unit that is getting cover from it. If you want to take one, it's fine.
Want to fight a trench war? Bring your own trench.
Exactly. And that is the book. That is the Imperial Guard Codex. As you pointed out, we are not primarily Guard players. We are starting to slowly move in that direction.
Says you.
Well, you're not. But like
Some of us
Kevin
are
and
taking-
Richard and I have all are starting to adopt guard armies
I
to
mean,
some
I
extent or
have
other.
Guardians and Storm Guardians. Does that count?
No, it does not.
But they have
You'll get yours
support
when
platform that goes around with it?
Eldari will get a codex, and then you can make fun of us all for not being knife ears. Okay,
Exactly.
okay. I mean, so the way I see this, looking at this codex, honestly, this does not change how this army plays terribly much. Like this, if you've been playing guard, you could just, like, I'm going to go from combined regiment to combined arms. My detachment is primarily the same. Most of my units didn't change a lot. I can give some more orders, most likely. My indirect fire got a little worse, but otherwise, like, if you played guard, I imagine you'll be like, yes, this is a guard codex. It is fine.
Yeah. No, that's kind of what I feel like too. It feels very similar to what they had before.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad.
No, it's not bad. I don't think there, other than the tone down on indirect fire a little bit, which again, not surprising, and some of the changes that we already saw coming in from like the balanced data slate. Like, there's not a lot of nerfs in this. Most of the units are doing the same thing they were before. So yeah, it's and you get for every. I feel like they pulled a number of units, they replaced them with just as many, if not more units, so you actually have more options in here than you did before. I think the biggest.
So Rob,
yeah.
Here's the question: they've got more units. Is it still less than Space Marines, or have they caught up?
I think it's still less than Space Marines.
Okay.
Yeah. No one is catching up with Space Marines. But I would say if there is one place where this book comes in lacking, it's in the detachments, and you're still not in a bad spot because you still have the combined arms detachment and you're fine. At no point do I look at this and like, oh man, guard lost their good detachment. No, guard still have a decent detachment. It's called combined arms. Why wouldn't you use it?
Yeah. And I think depending on tactics and how you play, I think the other detachments might have their roles, but yeah, I just don't think they're going to be as generally useful.
Yeah, I want to see somebody try to do stuff with the Hammer of the Emperor and the Siege Regiment, because the other three we could kind of see places for. I want it, like, maybe there's just something I'm missing. Maybe like everything, because again, I am not a guard player. We are not guard players generally. So maybe there's some gelling here that we're just not seeing. But yeah, it's like you at least always have the combined arms detachment to fall back on. And with that, you are fine with anything else you're doing. So honestly, guard's not in a bad place. I think they come out of this, it's pretty much a wash. They don't get any worse. They don't get amazingly better. They give a few more orders. The order system is still fine. It's effectively unchanged from the balanced data slate. So yeah, I don't know if I would say guard players are happy, because they'll probably want to see more buffs, but I don't think they'll be unhappy in general.
It's 40K. Nobody's ever happy with their army.
No, this is true. But no, overall, I think it's a fine book. Yeah, I look at it as like, yeah, this is fine. It's okay. It's decent. Like, it's that, which sounds like damning it with faint praise, but no, it's fine. It is a mid-level codex, which is where we would want it, like right in that sweet spot.
Guard were in a good spot before this, and I don't see this fundamentally changing anything. So that's good.
Yeah, no, as long as you still have the basic tools to do pretty well. So I don't see any downsides. Well, we are running out of our recording time, but we are finishing up just in time. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up episode 316. I believe 317 is going to be coverage from LVO, right, guys?
Yeah.
Ideally.
Kevin talked me into going and checking out the LVO narrative, so I'm going to go there and join him. Both of us are taking assault-heavy armies. I think you're doing Khorne again.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And
I have to defend my title.
And I'm taking the Sisters Repentia detachment, so we're both just going to be running at people and getting shot.
One of our armies is a little sturdier than the other, so it might work better for me.
Well, I have 2 metal boxes to keep my army safe in.
True.
But no, it looks to be a good time. I've always wanted to go to LVO once, so this is my time to try it out, see how it is. And I know, Rob, you've been once, and Kevin goes, seems like every year.
I mean, it's a short, well, it is a Midwest short drive. It's like 4 hours. Like it's a
short drive.
Yeah. I've driven much further for much stupider things. So
So yeah, no, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I still have to get my army painted. Knock on wood, I can get there.
Yeah, my army's basically done. I just have to. I ordered some new KR cases because I was tired of literally everything breaking. So I need to, at some point this week, pull the cases out and like pluck all the foam out and all that. But yeah, actually, I also have to figure out, I guess, what I'm going to take.
I mean, that would be good to know, like, when you're 2 weeks away from the event.
Yeah, I mean, gotta think about it. I mean, I know what I'm going to take. I just have to figure out, because I basically took about 3,000 points to the grand narrative, and I don't think I want to take all of that because I'm the games at the LVO narrative are 1,000-point team games, and then the final game is either 2,000-point team games or 4 like 1,000-point games. So it's a double the size, however you decide to get to it. So having the flexibility of having like up to 2,000 points is probably good, and I might bring a few other things just to have. So I don't know. I might literally just bring the exact same thing I took to the grand narrative and be like, just have all the options. So
yeah, and I'm the opposite side of that. Is I made 1,000-point list. It got nerfed because I can't take an exorcist because I went over. So now all of my stuff will fit in one KR case, which makes me happy. I did toy with the idea of still bringing the exorcists and making it that into the 2,000-point list Kevin was talking about. But then I was like,
yeah,
am I going to actually get all the rest of this other stuff painted? And the answer was no. So I'm like, yeah, just stick with one.
Well, and the good thing is like why I'm kind of, why I'm thinking I might just bring everything like I was, like I had, is the flexibility you get to that final game. If you don't have 1,000, 2,000 points, somebody else that was playing with you is like, okay, I have 2,000 points, you bring 1,000 points. Like you, basically, it's like the final game is going to be 4,000 points aside. How you get there, there's flexibility in that. So yeah, especially since I'm driving, it's much easier for me to bring more models than it is for you to, since you're flying. So
I will totally agree with that.
it's also easier for me to buy stuff and bring it back.
This is also true.
Looking forward to. I came back with an entire Old World army last year, so because it was Old World release weekend, and I was like, well, I don't know that I want to do this. Oh, but they have it, and I'm here, and I might as well buy all of it.
So I need to be the anti-Kevin. I need to be the disabler rather than the enabler. Okay, you're saying no. Got it.
And yes, as far as the Sunday preview, as of time of recording, the Death Korps Krieg army set will be going up for pre-order the day you hear this. So, or at least the day this goes up for listening. So, yes, it is official. Astra Militarum will be out. Also, the Battlefield Trophies kit, which is skulls and helmets.
I am actually very interested in that because I like the skull kit, but like the other stuff and the helmets and like that's really cool. And there's a lot of variety in here, which I like.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
lots of guard heads. There's a custodes head, lots of Space Marine heads, some Krieg heads, Sisters helmet heads,
but
Chaos
no talking
Space
heads.
Marine heads, Terminator heads, all the various cult Marine heads.
Yeah.
Kroot skulls, Beastman skulls,
Vespid skulls,
Vespid head, Tau helmet heads, Servo skull heads, Tyranid heads, Eldari heads.
Do they have Ironkin heads?
No, just plain little domes to sit on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
I'm
one,
excited for this.
That one looks like a fun little kit to use for basing. Anyway, it is time to wrap it up. So we will go ahead and wrap up episode 316. Like I said, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with some LVO coverage. But until then, I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
Dennis.
And Richard.
Good night, good gaming, and Astra Militarum, you're the guard now, son.